After 17 months break from cruise ships to our port, it's a pleasure and a privilege for me to welcome these ships back to our shores. So I am indeed happy.
Working in tourism allowed me to provide for myself and my family.
It is our pleasure to offer services to our taxi and tour bus operators. I need you as much as you need me.
I am happy to be working again, as I've done in the past, to provide for my family in cruise tourism.
Cruise is back. We have to do our part. Together we are cool.
Hello and welcome to the Tourism Awareness Month panel discussion. We want to thank you for joining us, whether it is via television as well as social media. My name is Patrice Harris and I am the moderator for tonight's conversation. I'm sure that you are well aware that we are currently celebrating Tourism Awareness Month. And one of the activities included in this month is a panel discussion where we have gathered individuals who are part of the industry to contribute to conversations. This evening, the topic for the panel discussion is inclusion, innovation, collaboration, pillars for recovery of the local tourism industry. As I would have mentioned before, my name is Patrice Harris, and I am joined by 4 other panelists who will provide contributions to tonight's discussion. We have with us Mr. Raphael Watney, better known as Vance, Miss Jamila Samuel, Miss Noblet Morton, and Mr. Saju N. Gala. I will start this evening's discussion by allowing each of the panelists to provide opening remarks based on the theme, inclusion, innovation, collaboration, pillars for the recovery of the local tourism industry. We're going to start with Mr. Raphael Watney.
Good evening, once again. It is a pleasure for me to be here virtually. I was actually supposed to be in studio with my fellow panelists, but unfortunately, I had a flight delay on Sunday, which actually put me in a situation where I had to come in to think it's a bit later on. Based on protocols, I got into there and I have to quarantine for 24 hours until tomorrow. Nonetheless, I had made a commitment to be a part of this panel discussion and to technology and ZIZ coming through with this lovely video feed. I do hope that you guys can see me very well. My internet so far has been reliable at the Koi, and I just want to say it is a pleasure for me to be here. The topic and the overall discussion is one where I've always considered it very passionate to my heart, and many people would know me from my involvement in entertainment over the years. It has been well over a decade. As a matter of fact, this December, Kinju's Cool Effect will be celebrating 10 years of hosting that particular event. I have always viewed our brand as a tourism product, and for that reason, I bring a wealth of insight and knowledge to this discussion tonight, and I look forward to sharing my views, my suggestions, and my hopes, as well as my objectives, and getting feedback from the other panelists, as well as anyone that may call in tonight and be a part of the discussion as well.
Mr. Rodney, we'll now move on to Mr. Ngala, Mr. Sergio Ngala.
Thank you, moderator. Just bear with me. My tablet is doing its own thing. Critical junction in the rebuilding of tourism industry, particularly the cruise sector. The destination prior to COVID-19 was on the upswing. Record numbers of arrival for air and record numbers of arrival for cruise. Yes, we were on the upswing. As we are all aware, the COVID-19 pandemic brought everything to a halt. The majority of our stakeholders could not work for almost a year. They had nothing to do. The disruption to international and regional travel caused by the pandemic made it clear that the relevance of tourism to our society is extremely important. However, tourism continues to suffer under COVID-19 pandemic. And really, truly, this is the reason because the priority right now is to keep everybody safe as it should be. Tourism matters because it plays an important role in people's general well-being, attitude towards life, sense of control and outlook. It is a key pillar of national development, contributing to local economic development and growth. It also contributes to employment, investment, as well as technology. Tourism is also closely linked with other sectors such as health, agriculture, construction, education, climate, and the environment. In the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, tourism is our bread and butter. That is why the St. Kitts Tourism Authority was tasked with inspiring our stakeholders to be resilient and to innovate. We asked them to find ways to adapt to this new normal so that they can continue their business, so they continue to make money. We know tourism will fully return. We also know when it does return, we're going to have to make some changes in the way we normally do business. And so the challenge right now for us working in the tourism industry is to inspire our stakeholders to muscle up and deal head on with the challenges brought on by COVID-19. So we decided to tell their stories. We selected stakeholders who were showing a great energy, creativity, innovation in the way they're tackling COVID-19. We selected stakeholders who we hoped from their stories would inspire other stakeholders to level up. For example, we took a film crew to Monkey Hill and we interviewed Anastasia Elliott, the owner of Sugartown Organics, a business that produces health and wellness products using local natural ingredients. Sugartown Organic now has a website allowing people from anywhere in the world to order their products with fulfillment in Miami. We believe this is inspiring and just one example of what innovation and creativity can do to help a business be resilient. One stakeholder. We indeed have other stakeholders with good stories, not waiting for a full reopening. Again, we do have stakeholders who are not waiting for a full reopening, but are prepared to transform their products and services and harness the capabilities to reimagine and reinvent the tourism industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your opening contribution, Sergio. And I did take some notes. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to go back on some of the points that you would have mentioned. I'll now allow Ms. Samuel to provide her opening remarks.
Good evening. Tourism is one of the fastest growing and most resilient socio-economic sector of our time. It accounts for 7% of global trade, outpacing the global economy over the last decade, as it generates millions of jobs both directly and indirectly. This information was released at the United Nations World Tourism Organization G20 Summit held in October 2020. The UNWTO Secretary General Zarab at that meeting stated that as the world joined forces to restart tourism, we had to live up to the responsibility to ensure that tourism benefits were shared by all. These benefits included employment and gender-based opportunities, which still needs to be fully deployed. This launched the Alula framework for inclusive community development through tourism. The framework provides guidance and inspiration to governments worldwide, the private sector, industry associations, civil society, communities, and tourists, with the aim of fostering a truly holistic approach to inclusive community development through tourism. The overall intention is to place inclusive community development at the heart of tourism policies through education, investment, innovation, and technology, which can transform the livelihoods of millions while also preserving our environment, culture, and drive to a more inclusive and sustainable recovery of tourism. As with any project, funding is required. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis, through its focal points at the Ministry of Tourism, have been working tirelessly with funding agencies such as UNDP, Caribbean Exports, and more to bring these efforts to fruition. Community-based tourism projects and best community competitions were launched. Information for access to free certification courses, workshops, and training sessions have been continuously disseminated to individuals in the private sector and MSMEs affected directly or indirectly by the COVID-19 pandemic. Completion of these sessions and mentorship programs have also opened opportunities for direct grant funding to assist the businesses in recovery efforts. For me, this year, the theme of inclusion, innovation, collaboration, pillars for recovery of the local tourism industry is quite fitting as the government tries to assist as many as they can through these programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jamila, for your contribution. We'll now move on to Ms. Noblet Morton.
Madam Moderator, fellow panelists, viewers, and other listeners, a pleasant evening to all. It gives me great pleasure to share my perspective on the topic Inclusion, Innovation, Collaboration, Pillars for Recovery of the Local Tourism Industry. First, let me define some key words in the topic. Inclusion refers to efforts being made to provide equal access to all, including marginalized groups, through opportunities and resources. Innovation speaks to new methods, new ideas, new products. Collaboration refers to partnership and working together. Tonight, I shall focus on what the Ministry of Tourism has been doing to resuscitate the tourism industry and to build it forward to become more sustainable and competitive. I will focus on the United Nations Development Program Future Tourism Project, which the Ministry of Tourism has been collaborating with to encourage our MSMEs to be trained and to retool and recover from the tourism industry. Before I discuss the UNDP project in greater detail, I would like to share some statistics on what has been happening globally to indicate that the COVID-19 pandemic has indeed disrupted the world and has caused devastation, great stress, and financial challenge to many micro, small, and medium enterprises. According to the World Tourism Organization, global arrivals fell by 74% and international tourism receipts by 67%. Tourism performance over the past year has been the worst since 1950. And according to global statistics, this time from the UN World Tourism Organization and the World Travel and Tourism Council, some between 62 to 100 million jobs were lost in 2020. 50 to 70% of the hospitality tourism workforce is female, and therefore this demographic was devastated by the pandemic. What has been done to assist female-owned, women-owned businesses? The UNDP project, which is dubbed the UNDP Future Tourism Project, Rethinking Tourism and MSMEs in Times of COVID-19, was based on a pilot study in 2020 in 4 countries: the British Virgin Islands, Montserrat, Grenada, and Barbados. And from the lessons learned, the UNDP expanded it to the member countries of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States and Barbados. The UNDP collaborated with the University of the West Indies and the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management to roll out the program, which involved training, policy direction, and financial assistance. In April to May of this year, the Ministry of Tourism was approached by the UNDP to recruit micro, small, and medium enterprises in St. Kitts and Nevis to seize the opportunity to engage in this open training. The training was in digital technologies, financial planning, and marketing. We reached out to taxi and tour operators, craft and other vendors, restaurants, and other small and medium enterprises. Some 46 businesses from St. Kitts and Nevis registered for the program, and 21 made it through to the end. And so these 21 businesses will shortly be receiving grants from the UNDP of a minimum of $4,000 and a maximum of $6,500 to retool and recover and improve their business operations. This is a clear indication of the UNDP project demonstrating inclusion. 77% female-owned businesses were involved in the project. Innovation through digital technologies, having the businesses exposed to online marketing and digital transactions. And collaboration demonstrated through the UNDP and the University of the West Indies, Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, the countries of the OECS, including St. Kitts and Nevis. This is a clear indication that the Ministry of Tourism has been working with other agencies, collaborating with other agencies to bring relief and to help retool and recover the tourism industry. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, Noblet. I'm sure that the listening and viewing audience would recognize that we have a wealth of knowledge available here on this panel this evening, and that we will have riveting discussions as it relates to the pillars for economic growth, especially as it relates to the tourism industry. What we have learned so far is not anything new. We know that tourism would have been hampered as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We know how important tourism is to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and Caribbean islands. We understand that the way moving forward for tourism has to include inclusive community development, investment, innovation, technology, which focuses on sustainable tourism. We are well aware as well that equal access to tourism is important, and that we've just learned of one of the initiatives that the ministry has undertaken to ensure that medium and small enterprises are catered for during this time, especially as it relates to their rejuvenation. We're going to pause for a short commercial break, and then we're going to come right back and delve into the topics of this evening's panel discussion.
After 17 months break from cruise ships to our port, it's a pleasure.
My name is Carla Astafan, and I have been a potter for over 20 years. I know it's a very difficult time for all of us in the industry, but this time has given me the opportunity to really rethink the whole operation. It's given me time to do other things, to do my pottery. I'm trying to stockpile on my work. To my brothers and sisters in the tourism industry, this is a time to look towards the future. This is a time to examine what you have been doing, see what new things you can do, how you can diversify, how you can innovate, plan ahead. So with proper planning, we will all be prosperous in the future.
Thank you for staying with us. You are tuned into the Tourism Awareness Month panel discussion. My name is Patrice Harris, and I am the moderator for tonight's conversation, where we are discussing inclusion, innovation, and collaboration, pillars for recovery of the local tourism industry. Joined with me, I have Mr. Raphael Watney, Mr. Saju Ngala, Mr. Miller Samuel, and Ms. Novlet Morton. The panelists earlier provided their interpretation of the theme that we are discussing this evening, and they would have already begun to unearth some of the major topical areas. And we're going to continue this conversation by diving right into what we consider to be the focus for rebuilding the tourism sector. And as such, it is imperative that we rebuild the tourism sector, especially having learned earlier of the economic gains that this sector provides, not only to St. Kitts and Nevis, but the Caribbean and globally. And as such, what we want to begin the discussion this evening is by having an understanding as to what are some of the challenges that we currently face as it relates to rebuilding the tourism sector. And I think Mr. Ngala is so perfectly poised to respond to this question. Mr. Ngala?
Patrice, thank you for your question. Patrice, the COVID-19 pandemic, I truly believe, well, most of us in tourism, provides us with an opportunity to reinvent our tourism industry. This opportunity of reimagining the industry and making it better, making it more resilient, we feel that our stakeholders, for the most part, are ignoring it. We want our stakeholders to be more creative. Now, I know creativity is a very broad and complex concept, but if we're gonna come out of the pandemic and maybe even survive other challenges, we're gonna have to change the way we do business. It can't be business as normal because the world is changing or has changed. And how we innovate, how we become creative will be determined how resilient we are in the future. So one of the biggest challenges right now in tourism for our stakeholders is to make them understand that, yes, to some extent, you do have to change how you're operating and how you're doing business.
Is it really to some extent or to a large extent?
Well, it's not all businesses that have to go all the way. A good example maybe might be a taxi operator who on most days will come down to Port Zante to look for work. He'll put his name on the chart and wait for his name to be called. In this new period now, where things are changing, where we're trying our best to be safe, obey the protocols, maybe get a website, become a tour operator, have your guests book online, and that way, when you come to Port Zante, or when the tourists arrive, you're not going looking for work, they're coming looking for you. And that's just one example of how you can level up, and hopefully, if anything should happen, for example, adversity, you can survive because you have a point of contact where it's not personal.
And in your explanation as to what one of the major challenge is, being some of the individuals who are involved in the sector finding it very difficult to be able to reimagine and reinvent and recreate, in my mind you have already started to think of what the solution to that problem is just by the identifying of that issue. But I know it's not always very easy to reimagine and to reinvent, especially with so many stressing factors combined. But I'm sure that the other panelists are able to pitch in as well as to what they consider to be some of the challenges outside of persons' inability to think outside of the box or to be more innovative, that there are other challenges that the industry faces today. Any of the panelists want to chime in here?
I actually can.
Okay.
As I work for MSME. The last 18 months, we basically have been out of business. So trying to get back and be innovative, though you may have the ideas and know what you want or know the steps that are required, funding or financing is very difficult at this time. So you're now working on getting past that phase to start beginning the implementation of, for example, I work for Caribel Boutique, and for the last 40 years, we were a company that did not believe in technology.
Oh, wow.
We sold an experience, and the experience was only at Romney Manor. It was not something that we believe you can get online, for example, on the website. You had to come there. But now we are realizing that with the new times, you have to adapt, you have to change, you have to collaborate. And so now we're working on those processes. So it's not a lot of we have a block or we don't want to do it, but it's a case of we need to work out how beneficial it's going to be for us and when we can get, how fast we can get funds to achieve all that we want to.
So is it the case that there are at least some baby steps being taken to get you online?
Yes,
okay.
We're already online. We have a website with limited stuff because the website is actually being operated from Canada. The owner's daughter lives there. So we have sent stuff there, and you can purchase from the US and Canada, which makes it much easier for shipping. So we are taking baby steps, but it's a long process.
And so for you, from your vantage point, it's funding and financing.
Yes, it is.
One of the challenges.
One of the challenges.
I can see why.
If I can say as well, the Ministry of Tourism recognized as I said earlier, the devastation that the pandemic caused. And just to give you an idea of the impact of the pandemic, I'm going to share some statistics, and then I'm going to say what the Ministry of Tourism had suggested as a possible way of pivoting to survive the pandemic. The visitor arrivals by air for St. Kitts and Nevis in 2019 were 120,196 visitor arrivals by air for St. Kitts and 8,073 for Nevis. For 2020, for St. Kitts, 29,878. For Nevis, 980. And in 2021, up to September, there were 9,621 air arrivals for St. Kitts and 416 for Nevis. We can look at the numbers from 120,000 in 2019 to 9,621 up to September 2021. And cruise arrivals will be even more devastating, because we know in 2018-2019 cruise season, we were over 1 million passengers, cruise passengers. And then in 2019-2020, 540-something thousand. And then basically restarting from July, and now for November, at least we have 31 calls for this month. So the devastation has been extensive. What the Ministry of Tourism, in collaboration with the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, had suggested at the outset, one way of pivoting is through domestic tourism. Engage in domestic marketing. Get your people, when the country was basically at a standstill, closed down, curfew, lockdown, etc., and there was little travel. There was little travel coming into the destination. We encouraged our locals to experience the tourism product. People would go over to Nevis, stay at Oali, etc., and enjoy themselves. Go hiking, take tours, and that kind of thing. So we were encouraging domestic marketing. There was takeaway. We had advised persons, restaurants, rather than just close on your operations, what about catering or allowing persons to come and purchase and to leave? But I don't think we can go back to normal. I think that going forward, the whole question of health and safety protocols is very important, because you just have to change the way you do business. And it's not St. Kitts, it's not the Caribbean, it's global. Mask, social distancing, hand sanitizing, wiping down your stations, etc. A new way of doing business. But there are opportunities as well.
I think in each of the explanations provided, I am hearing more about what the opportunities are as opposed to what the challenges are. And I find that to be quite refreshing and profound, because it means that we're already thinking about problem solving. And we're thinking about how can we get back to where we need to be, recognizing these very devastating numbers now. Like these numbers have me feeling quite disturbed. But I can understand why persons were not traveling. We know that there were several restrictions, and people, even within their own personal preferences, really wanted to remain as safe as possible. So the challenges of the reduced number of persons coming into our shores certainly would have had a devastating impact on our tourism product. Mr. Watney, we haven't forgotten you, even though you're here virtually. Is there a contribution that you would like to provide to the topic that we're discussing at the moment, which is the challenges that this sector would have faced?
Well, I can appreciate the numbers that were presented in terms of the inbound travelers into St. Kitts over the last 3-year period. I think one of the major challenges is balancing life and livelihoods. The sector has been hit really, really hard, and it is very important and also critical for us to identify ways in which we can balance this, so that we can be brave enough, we can be prepared enough to accept the risk. As we were told, the risk will be coming back into our shores from time we open up the borders. And I don't think that the intent was for us to do this and at the same time sacrifice economic activity. So, as you mentioned, we are hearing about the opportunities, but the actual challenge as it is right now, in my opinion and from my perspective, is balancing life and livelihoods. If you were to speak to taxi operators, I'm here to represent entertainment, and if you speak to people in the entertainment sector, many of us have gone out and got vaccinated. Many of us have found ways to innovate our businesses. As a matter of fact, since the pandemic started, our entity have not retailed any physical tickets. Every single ticket for the events that we have attempted, and we've only successfully done one event, and all tickets were retailed 100% online, just so that we could move away from the traditional ticket rush at the venue, or even at a box office or a ticket outlet. We also have digitized the entire process from start to finish. So in terms of if there was ever a situation where we needed to present data for contact tracing, we could have done so. You know, one of the things that I would like for us to also discuss is redefining the target market as it relates to tourism, because there are sectors which I feel are yet to be exploited. And as Saju said earlier, it's almost an opportunity for us to reset. And I think in resetting, we must redefine target markets, because you have sectors within entertainment as it relates to film and movies being shot here in St. Kitts. You have sporting activities. CPL is a very successful one, and you can also source more that will suit our island, such as triathlons and regattas. You know, we have yet to tap into that boating culture, which is huge. The entertainment sector in the US alone in 2018 was 678 billion, and it was expected to grow to over 720 billion in 2020. Now, the pandemic came and we were more or less shut down. Everything came to a standstill. And now that we're starting to open up, I can tell you for a fact, I've traveled a few times during this pandemic, and a few countries have already gotten it right. Some are still trying to figure it out. I mean, I was in Jamaica recently, and I was a bit baffled, because on the local end, some businesses are restricted as it relates to entertainment, and locals can't really get to enjoy certain amenities. But as a tourist, I was able to go party at a hotel every night. Even though there is a curfew on the island, during the daytime, tourists from the hotel could still go out and mingle with the locals, and we could have gone to certain tourist attraction, which are almost like day clubs. So you still could party and mingle even during the daytime. So businesses have a chance to make money, but to me, it's kind of counterproductive in a sense, because you are shutting down your economic activity internally to get some tourist activity, but the tourist activity is where the threat is coming back. So for me, striking the balance is very important, and finding a way so that all facets of the sector could have a chance to partake in the economy. So, you know, the ships may come in, yes, but the taxi operators, how can they benefit? How can the tour operators benefit as well? Because we are asking them to be innovative and change up and go online with their services and their products, but then the tourists still have to find a way to access them. And that is, of course, when they come physically. Because if you're operating, for example, tours on the island, you sell it while the tourists are away, but when they get here, they have to find a way to get to you in order for them to experience what it is they bought into. So I think one of the challenges definitely is balancing life and livelihoods, and hopefully at the end of this discussion we could find some ways and suggestions and present them so that, you know, the right people listening could help to affect some change.
The contribution has allowed us to segue quite perfectly into the next topic area, where we're discussing the opportunities for holistic growth. We have recognized, even by the contributions that have been provided this evening, that we can no longer view tourism in a bubble. It is not separate from any of the other industries. There must be some understanding that these industries, they have to work together. And with that recognizing that tourism is multifaceted, how are we able to, or what is it that we need to do to ensure that there is a holistic approach so that we can attain the true growth that we're really discussing here this evening? Because remember, we're speaking about the pillars for recovery. And the first pillar, in my estimation, is the recognition that this is not separate. This industry is not separate. Franz already began speaking about the component of the entertainment industry. So panelists, How do we tap into that, the holistic growth and working together with other industries?
Depending. I think first of all we have to come to terms that we are operating in a pandemic and that the safety and the health of our people is the priority. I'm kind of going to have to go back to the first question of the challenges that we're having. That's a challenge right there. Recognizing that we cannot just open fully, it has to be done in phases, and that of course brings along other challenges. Not everybody can partake, not everybody can, fully earn the living that they want. So before we even get out of the pandemic or even move forward, we've noticed that resistance, that yes, we are in a pandemic, we cannot open fully, we have to take our time, and we have to be responsible with it. In tourism, in the past, before the COVID and the pandemic and so forth, we used to operate almost in a vacuum. People will come, they want to work in tourism, they want to start a business. Okay, come, let's talk, let's get you going. Now, we have to involve pretty much, the task force, the Ministry of Health, even cabinet at times get involved. So that is where, when you speak about holistic, right now, as we try and get tourism back up fully, it's not just tourism alone. We have to work with the task force. We have to work with the Ministry of Health. We have to work with SCASPA. We have to work with a number of entities to allow us to even, start to move things forward. And it's really funny because it's from that point of view, you kind of notice how connected tourism is, how everything pretty much, if tourism is down, the country is down, because tourism is what drives the economy. So everybody now is connected in getting us back up to par.
And I think that really is what Vance would have mentioned earlier as his point in terms of balancing life and livelihood. Because yes, it is all well and good to say that yes, we have to do this as a phased approach, but it is really a difficult pill to swallow for an individual whose livelihood depends on a tourism product.
But please don't get me wrong, we're fully understanding of the plight. I know of people who have not worked since last year in tourism. They have found other means, which is really not enough, but they have not worked in tourism for an entire year. We fully understand that. However, the phased approach that we're using is actually working. Week by week, we're improving. Right now, Port Zante used to be closed off to the general public when a ship is in. Now, if you're fully vaccinated, you have access to Port Zante when a ship is in. That couldn't happen, 2 or 3 months ago because of where we are. But our protocols, our system is working, and so we're able to add to it. And the challenge really is getting people to believe in the process, that right now with this pandemic, slowly is definitely the right route to go.
I think wide stakeholder consultation is a strategy we should continue to use. Notice I say continue because I know the Tourism Authority and the Ministry of Tourism, they have been led by the Minister and the Permanent Secretary and the CEO of the Tourism Authority, have been engaging stakeholders since last year, advising them of the need to become vaccinated, to pivot, to redesign their taxes and things like that. So I think wide stakeholder consultations are important. But in terms of what we need to do to work together, the government placed great emphasis on agriculture, and so a lot of our even taxi operators got involved in agriculture. A lot of people are now growing food, And so I think there needs to be a greater emphasis on the collaboration between agriculture and tourism. Agro-tourism, important, because we have to get our restaurants, our hotels to buy from our farmers. Our farmers therefore have to be consistent in terms of their supply and produce quality produce that persons will want to buy and at affordable prices. So I think collaborating with agriculture, tourism and agriculture, collaborating in the area of culture, our artisans, our craft vendors, public-private partnerships, partnering with the chamber, etc., and public-public partnerships as well, getting different agencies, tourism, collaborating, as Sadra said, with health. All of these are very important in terms of getting devising a strategy to resuscitate the industry.
Especially as we consider holistic growth, as you began mentioning out the different entities that the ministry and the authority are partnering with, I instantly even thought about fishers and fisheries as well, especially as we think about the farmers. But I'm sure that there are many other ways that we can collaborate, recognizing how holistic the need is for us to be able to get to that pillar of recovery. And one of them, this is my contribution, I know I'm not a panelist, but one of the areas that I think as well is certainly ICTs, especially as Sajul was mentioning earlier, and as Jamila would have mentioned earlier, the need to reinvent and redesign and provide different experiences. I'm not sure if any of the panelists can speak to that or any of the other areas for holistic growth.
Well, during the break, we had a video with Carla Astafan and her pottery. We made that video sometime last year in the heat of the pandemic, and we asked Carla, there's no tourists. Who are you going to sell your pottery to? Mm-hmm. She mentioned that she has a few ideas, and part of it entails, of course, going after the local market, but also, why not teach how to make pottery? So Carla is was looking, and I didn't really follow up with her, but doing Zoom calls or webinars online on how to make pottery. She's never done that before. That's technology. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good example of a soft pivot. It's not a complete pivot because she's still in the thing, but now she's teaching. People pay to learn how to make pottery, and she's making an income off of that.
That's actually a really good idea, and I'm sure that there are many other small businesses or just entrepreneurs who can exploit technology to their vantage point so that we are able to get back on that path of recovery. All right, we're going to continue with the conversations, and now we're going to speak a bit to what the government of St. Kitts and Nevis has done, and I'm sure Sajua and Navlet and even Jamila in her private sector can speak to what would have taken place in order to prepare stakeholders for what this recovery process would look like and the reopening.
Well, if I may. One of the first things that my CEO, Raquel Brown, and the Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Lindsay Grant, noticed is that we have to get our stakeholders prepared for post-pandemic and so forth. We have to be able to operate in a safe manner. Hand sanitization, social distancing, and of course wiping down, and others. We started the travel-approved training, and that allows us to train the entire industry. Right now we're probably over 8,000 people we have trained thus far in both St. Kitts and Nevis to operate safely during this pandemic. And it's a tool. It's a collaboration with the Ministry of Health, and it's of no cost, because we noticed that in order for potential tourists who are looking for places to visit, they of course are looking for safe destinations. Destinations that are taking this pandemic seriously, and of course we are. And the training that allows our stakeholders to operate during this pandemic is definitely allowing us now to get back up into full swing.
All right, and Jamila, from the private sector end, I'm certain that you might have been involved in some of this travel approved training.
I actually was involved.
Okay, so you can tell us about that and what your business would have done in terms of preparation.
So we were involved in the travel seal training. The rules are we are not allowed to have employees on the property working unless they have actually attended and completed this training, which is quite good for us because there are little things that you would forget. Like he said, the collaboration, so we've been visited on numerous occasions by the CMO, the task force. We've had meetings. We were told what was required, what we needed to implement in order to become a part of the bubble. So there are a lot of things that we tend to do as individuals out of head, but during a pandemic, checklists becomes very important. And so now we have checklists on every single aspect of everything that we have to cover. For example, today we had almost 1,000 visitors at Romney Manor.
Oh, wow.
So on a day like today, without a checklist, we probably would have been headless, like headless chickens. So there are hand sanitizers placed all over the property. You sanitize at entry. You're checked, your temperature checked. We don't do contact tracing for cruise ships because it's a cruise ship and we know which ship you're from. But there are about 15 hand sanitization points on the property, inside and outside. We have a limit of how many can come in at a particular time. There's hand sanitizing before you go to the bathrooms. You still wash your hands at the bathrooms. I have staff that every 30 minutes, depending on traffic flow, because if there's heavy traffic flow, maybe it's every 15 minutes, that we sanitize the furnitures on the ground. So there are a lot of processes that are now in place that were not prior to COVID. And we would not have come up with these on our own. So without the help of the government and the meetings with the task force, all of this would not have been possible. So Caravel definitely, and all the private sector, in order to be a part of the bubble, had to participate in this.
And outside of the health requirements and the adherence to the protocols, what other type of preparation would have been necessary? Obviously, the business would have been closed for some time. What other type of preparation would have been necessary when you got that call that the first cruise ship was coming?
Well, because, we were closed down for almost a year, we had little openings in between. But we also went into hurricane season. And because we are both historic and retail-based company, we had to protect our stock because our stocks are assets. And so everything was plastic bagged and packed away, covered down with tarpaulins. So when we got the call that the first cruise ship was coming, it was a matter of trying to get as many staff in to get everything prepared, get the flow back to normal, and make it look as if we were in business all along and never closed down to begin with. And it was fun. It was good to have some of the old staff back because, during COVID, all of the employees were sent home. So it was great to see familiar faces, but there are also some new faces in with us. As you know, if you're not vaccinated, unfortunately, you cannot be in the bubble. So there are some employees that were unable to return as a result.
Okay. All right, and that's a lovely area for us to take a short break and come right back to our conversation as we're discussing the pillars for recovery of the local tourism industry. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to St. Kitts. The health and safety of both our residents and our visitors remains our #1 priority. Please ensure that you put on your face. Stay in your lane. Practice social distancing. Sanitize. Wash or sanitize your hands every 30 minutes. And follow established health health and safety protocols on all island tours. Report COVID-19 symptoms to any government official or your hotel manager. You can call the Emergency Health Hotline at 311. We look forward to welcoming familiar faces and to introducing St. Kitts to those who may not have visited before.
Thank you for staying tuned. My name is Patrice Harris, and I am the moderator for tonight's Tourism Awareness Panel discussion, where we are discussing inclusion, innovation, collaboration, pillars for recovery of the local tourism industry. With me, I have Mr. Raphael Watney, Mr. Sergio Ngala, Ms. Jamila Samuel, and Ms. Noblet Morton. They have been providing contributions as it relates to the pillars for growth, what is needed for holistic recovery, and what it is that their businesses have been doing in terms of preparation and adapting to this new normal. Just before the break, we were speaking with Ms. Samuel, who was sharing with us about what was being done and is being done at the Romney Manor as it relates to welcoming back our cruise passengers. And we're going to continue with that conversation and speak about what it is that how it is that businesses were able to survive the challenges as it relates to COVID-19. Now, Ms. Samuel mentioned that their doors were closed, and many businesses, their doors were closed as well. Their employees went home, but they were able to somehow, when they got that call that the cruise ships are coming back, able to transform. So, Sergio, I know you're working with some of the small business owners, especially through the authority and the ministry, and Noblet yourself as well. Tell us about what you would have been learning from the small businesses so far as it relates to how they coped with COVID and the challenges.
Well, I feel they cope very well. I hope I'm using the right term. Most of them found side hustles. Yes. Carpentry, plumbing, electrician. Some of them went, use their vehicles for going to the deep water port, pick up people's barrels and so forth, transportation. They were able to survive by, yes, I'm going to use that word again, by being resilient. They found other ways to get by. When they got the call that, we begin to get cruise ship back and so forth, yes, they came back right away. But even before that, I must add, the Minister of Tourism, Honorable Grant, we worked out a system where before we were even thinking about tourism coming back, how do we get our taxi operators, making something? We devised a program where they were going to provide that corridor, that safe corridor from the airport to the hotel. That time we had 14-day quarantine and so forth. It was our taxi operators who we trained, who had their vehicles outfitted to ensure that they can carry people safely, who was carrying travelers, who were carrying friends and families from the airport to the hotel and so forth. So we were always looking for means to get them going again. Again, when I look at our stakeholders who are innovative, I go back again to our stories. we did a video on Seth Saheli, who is a chef, and from his interview, and his way of surviving was, cooking at people's home. You couldn't go out eat in a restaurant because that wasn't allowed back then. And mind you, he was doing that before then, but he ramped it up a bit. In fact, he ramped it way up because he even wrote a book, and it's being sold on Amazon. So those are the kind of things that we encouraged and pushed, and for the most part, it looked like it came off pretty well.
I would just like to add, Patrice, that along that line, that Jamelia Samuel, on this very panel, she was one who was featured on the World Travel and Tourism Council Facebook page. Her story about her life in tourism, her life as the general manager of Romney Man and Carabel Batik, and the successes that she has made. And she did indicate that they needed to pivot, right, with the COVID-19 pandemic. But I would just like to say that the Ministry of Tourism, in its own little way, through Tourism Awareness Month, has been reaching out to our entrepreneurs, our micro enterprises. For example, we collaborated with Easy Access Graphics for our Tourism Awareness Month shirts. We collaborated with Crown Prince for the t-shirts for the 10K run on Sunday. We had our family feud at Vibes Beach Bar at the Strip. And we have been doing Sen Consulting. He did our staff development day. He was one of the main facilitators for our staff development day. For Infocade, we collaborated with HERC, we collaborated with the Department of Youth, we collaborated with the National Carnival Committee, because you had the young ladies, and we also collaborated with the National Carnival Committee for Family Feud, where the contestants, the swimsuit contestants and the queen contestants participated. So we have been reaching out, and as I said, we have been trying to make sure, as I mentioned, Vibes Beach Bar, make sure that small businesses are able to benefit from our activities during this month.
That is wonderful. I really love to hear when we are able to work with some of our smaller entrepreneurs and provide them with opportunities. I'm sure that they are grateful for that. All right, so Fonz, you're up, because now we're going to have a bit of a conversation about Carnival being a tourism product. This year we're celebrating our 50th anniversary of Sugar Mass, of the St. Kitts Nevis National Carnival, and we're very well aware that Carnival is a tourism product. Now, Fonz, the question is, are there any plans in the entertainment industry to rebuild the confidence in the tourism industry? What's happening in terms of the entertainment industry and their plans as well, especially as an entertainment service provider now in a post-COVID-19 era?
I'm sorry, just now when you were asking the question, it had a little glitch. So if you don't mind, if you could just ask the question one more time a little bit faster, I'd really appreciate it. Forgive me.
This year is a highly anticipated year as we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the St. Kitts Nevis National Carnival. Carnival is a tourism product. Are there any plans in the entertainment industry to rebuild the confidence in the tourism industry? What we specifically want you to speak to is, being an entertainment service provider, what plans are you thinking about or are taking place as it relates to merging with tourism, being a carnival product, especially in a post-COVID-19 era? I try to rephrase as many ways as possible so that you can certainly provide us with the best contribution.
Well, first of all, that is a very, very brilliant question. I love it and I appreciate it. We have always maintained that our brand is a tourism product. Few years ago, when we started to realize the amount of people that were coming into St. Kitts during Carnival time to experience our event, it was then that we decided to ramp up and amp up quite a bit of operations, even as it relates to the technology that we now use during the pandemic to create more or less of a minimum contact type of environment as it relates to selling tickets and so forth. I prepared a bit of stats in order for me to share, some of the perspective of the economic impact that not just my events, but other major events in St. Kitts would have on our economy and the people. Cool Effect does very, very large numbers. We've seen well over 6,000 people. You have other major events. You have Inception during Carnival. And then you also have the mass bands and the Juve troops that contribute and have quite a bit of people that fly in as well. So overall, you have a conglomerate of various carnival flavors, I would call it for now, because we all offer something different. We come together and we package something in collaboration more or less with the Carnival Committee to have some serious economic stimulation to tourism, right? What brings people to our shores overall is a question, and what brings people to our shores during Carnival in this specific light is something that I want you to keep in mind. When people come to St. Kitts to enjoy, for example, Cool Effect, that specific weekend, you have an influx of, let's just say, well over 2,000 people coming in, right? When you marry that with the domestic crowd, then we get up to the numbers that we ultimately achieve. But you have 2,000 visitors coming in. These 2,000 visitors each will spend, let's just say at minimum, 300 to 600 US, 2,000 people, right? Right then and there, if you have 2,000 people spending 600 US just for that weekend, we're talking about them going to events, staying at hotel, renting a vehicle, eating at restaurants, going on a catamaran, going on, they call those ATVs. You literally just experienced 1.2 million US dollars being injected into the economy. 600 US from 2,000 people. I'm speaking about an event such as Cool Effect. I am not even talking about music festival as yet, who in recent years we have seen record numbers of well over 10 to 12,000 people per night. So then you do the math again. How have we prepared to welcome the new normal? In all honesty, we have met with the Ministry of Entertainment and the Honorable Minister, and we have presented ideas and suggestions in terms of, rapid testing as opposed to vaccinated, or how could we use entertainment to help to drive the numbers forward? Because the higher the immunity rate, then the more we can accommodate and the more we can definitely move on. But what I want to say is, while COVID had put us in a bad place and we finally heading back into a position now where we can start to host events again, it is very critical for us to remember the norms that we recently acquired. When I was riding in the taxi today, there was this plastic screen. He had an attachment in his bus with 3 different brands of hand sanitizers, plus a napkin and a bin. Before COVID, we weren't so cleanly as a people, right? So now I can see where there's a level of inclusion, a level of innovation, and a level of collaboration with the taxi drivers, and for example, an event organizer such as myself, feeling good knowing that when visitors come here, at least the taxi operators are in line with what the protocols are supposed to be. This gives me a point of argument, for example, when I go before the task force to say, hey, the taxi drivers are in alignment with what is required. You understand? The hotels are in alignment with what is required. The tourism authority, the tourism ministry has done a great job at educating people as to how to prepare with the seminars and workshops. So what is really prohibiting from moving on? That is the question. I feel like we are well poised and in a position in order for us to get a level of economic activity which we used to have before. The numbers that were previously mentioned by my fellow panelists, they were daunting. But I do believe with events such as Carnival, we can definitely help to stimulate and rebuild the pillars that were once holding up the tourism sector. Something else I want to add, and maybe Sajo might come in right after me when I say this, but we definitely get it right as it relates to music festival, marketing it, getting it out there, making sure that the entire world, as far as we can market, know about St. Kitts Nevis Music Festival. The love is not the same, the Carnival product, and I do believe that we have found on it. And you know, in all honesty, we have also found an entertainment during this time, and we really, really need to change the mentality fast, because people are traveling to destinations where they can be entertained. Entertainment is not just a party. Entertainment is even the taxi operators who now have trucks with a little sound system on it, taking these tourists throughout the entire island, stopping at various shops, carrying them up in the mountains. This is entertainment. There's entertainment on the catamaran cruises. So entertainment is bringing people to our shores again. That adds to the numbers, not just the cruise ship, but also in terms of the inflows. I know that I've spoken about a few things here, but I wanted to at least ensure that my fellow panelists make a few notes based on what I'm saying, especially Sadhu. And I also want to pitch the question back to him to find out what it is that the ministry, who is so far doing a great job, because I do believe that the ministry is a catalyst. The Ministry of Tourism, that is a catalyst for us even being in the position where we are now to start to get numbers coming back to St. Kitts. So I want to challenge him equally now to, because you asked me about Carnival, Patrice, but I only have so much power and no more. I am a stakeholder in terms of a decision maker that I am not. So Sergio definitely sits in a position to help to influence some change so that our Carnival product, I mean, it's right there now. But I don't feel it is too late for us to capitalize on what that specific pivot could do for us moving into the new year and having people look at St. Kitts again as a place that is your business. Because at the end of the day, when entertainment brings people here, it is inclusion, it is definitely collaboration. And as long as we have, and we continue, because quite a bit of us have already innovated the way that we do business. As long as we continue to innovate, then we can do so in a very safe manner. But we bring people to the shores of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Sergio, before you respond, because sponsors drawn his sword, before you respond, I really want to provide the numbers for any caller who would like to ask a question or even make a statement to be a part of the conversation. The numbers are 466-2666, 466-2666, 662-8674. I'm hopeful that these numbers will show up on the screen shortly. 767-4765 and 1239-645-4500. All right, Sergio, I tried to save it as best as I possibly could to prepare your response to Franz, who spoke about the marketing component.
Okay, with the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, I've always seen our entertainment as a way of bringing people to the island, particularly when it comes to Caribbean marketing. Mm-hmm. Caribbean people travel for events. They'll travel for a regional football game, for CPL, mm-hmm. for concerts. So we do, before COVID, we did extensive marketing of our events in the Caribbean. Can more be done? Definitely. We mainly at that time focused, on Latin Festival, Music Festival, Culturama, even Carnival. we focused on events that we thought would bring more people, to the island. The St. Kitts Music Festival was designed from the ground up to be an international event. Very different from local events that we have now that were designed for the local market and then develop more into a regional, international event. And so Music Festival, had the full backing of the government, had the full backing of the people, the hundreds of volunteers, and that was was designed to bring people here during the low of tourism in the summer and to stimulate the market. But, when we look at our local events, we have noticed that they have stepped up the game. And the plan was always to go a bit more in marketing these things because the potential, especially now that we're living in a social media or Instagram world, people are looking for that Instagram moment, they're looking for experiences, they're looking for fun. Yes, I think it offers that. Look at our carnival. Over the past, 8 years or so, our carnival has become pretty much, for some people, a must-do on their calendar. A major area that most people don't realize is the VFF, Visiting Friends and Family, which is a huge market. And that tends to deal itself with events, entertainment, and so forth. If you look at the Green Valley Festival in its heyday, people from the UK, from the US, never missed a Green Valley. They were there. And so the potential is there. Funds, the St. Kitts Tourism Authority does see it. We have been doing it. Can more be done? Yes. But at the same time, I think our local promoters do need to add to the experience, do need to raise their standard, and sometimes it just can't be about the concert. It got to be about other things, other packages. The restaurants need to get, the taxi operators, the timing of these events do help a lot. An event over holiday weekend, an event during, on a weekend and so forth, it does lend itself to better promotion.
If I could add, Patrice, to what Sergio said, I think the entertainment industry will have to definitely pivot, and I must commend the National Carnival Committee for this, combining the virtual with the in-person, because it's not going to be business as usual, as you said earlier, Sergio. We have to combine the virtual with the in-person to reach as a wide a cross-section of persons as possible, to go global, basically. Last year they did it with the Calypso show, the virtual Calypso show. Now they are doing it again, virtual and in person for those persons who are vaccinated. So I think going forward, that's what's going to happen. And then I could just inject here as well what the Ministry of Tourism did last year and attempted to do this year, but because of the lockdown, we had to shelve that activity, cancel it for this year. That was the Restaurant Week, St. Kitts Nevis Restaurant Week Virtual Cook-Off Challenge. We had thousands of followers. It was a fun event. You had eliminations. The contestants basically had to submit photos and videos, and they were judged. And then we had 4 finalists. And Pearl Bergen of Nevis won the 2020 Virtual Restaurant Week Cook-Off Challenge. This year, it was planned for July, but as I said, because of the restrictions, because of the lockdown, we were not able to execute it this year. But hopefully, going forward, we will continue with both the virtual and the in-person so that we can reach a global audience.
Thank you for your contributions, novelists, and thank you for...
If I may, I'm sorry. Just to add one more thing about marketing and promoting our events. I think it was in 2018, we actually brought down bloggers, Caribbean bloggers, who loved the party, and they did a marvelous job. They were here for our carnival, and they went all out. So we are looking not just a traditional means of marketing, but also the new way of marketing, the digital media, social media, and so forth, because again, it's all about experiences, and these bloggers captured those experiences very well.
Thank you, Sajid. There's so much that we can speak about, and we have only begun to just touch the surface of so many of these topics. But as you can imagine, we only have a limited amount of time to do so. And as I can see that we don't have any callers at this point in time, I'm going to allow each of the panelists about 30 to 45 seconds to provide your concluding remarks, any final parting words that you would like to share with our listening and viewing audience as it relates to the conversation that we've been having this evening. So, Mr. Rodney, we're going to start with you, since you so lovely drew your sword at Mr. Ngala, and I'm sure that he provided you with a response. Hopefully it was satisfactory to you, but I'll allow you to provide your concluding remarks as we begin to wrap up this evening's conversation.
Well, I think that the response from Sajo is an acceptable one. I do agree that, stepping up the game is very critical in a time like this. But what I can say is the sector is prepared to do so. When you look around and you recognize, if you really choose to look around, you definitely find evidence that we have taken certain steps and measures to try to get back to work, as I would put it, in a safe environment and in a very in a critical way. And the reason why I say critical is, like I said, we have to balance life and livelihoods, and also be fully aware of the reality of the times that we're living in. Now, I sometimes feel as if we are holding on to some of the archaic ways that we would have had to live through for COVID. And if we continue to do that, then we are going to be left behind with our tourism product, especially. Even in filling out my application to come back, it was a bit tedious, and I understand that it's something that we would have had to do to mitigate the risk. But when you have competition from neighboring islands and even the bigger countries, because believe it or not, states like Miami have taken a huge chunk out of our tourism revenue. People are going to these places, and earlier I heard you mention that people want to travel to places that are safe. They want to do that, yes, but they don't want to be restricted. I saw a video, unfortunately, with a tourist saying that he feels restricted here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The bubble thing, I think we may need to look at ways to graduate from that process soon. This is just my humble opinion. Like I said, I've done quite a bit of traveling during this pandemic, and I don't want us to be left behind. The tourism ministry and authority has been doing a good job so far, and I think that they have to continuously go into whichever rooms they go to, and sit down and fight for the cause of the stakeholders and the people that are heavily affected in the sector itself. Earlier, I heard Sajo, Lord, Sajo, may picking on you. But again, you said there are no people that have not worked in a year. And you then concluded by saying, however, it's a hard pill for people to swallow, as Patrice had mentioned, to hear the word, however, when they are not in a year, especially when they have taken measures to adapt to the times. So we need to find a way to get these people back to work. And sometimes it doesn't really involve the government having to do anything but making allowances for certain sectors to open in order for these people to go back to earning a living. That being said, I think that this was a very, very good panel discussion. Time has gone by so quickly, but I feel as if we're able to bounce ideas, share statistics, give our views, our experiences, and I look forward to more discussions like these. I do believe that this would provide an avenue for some positive outcomes as it relates to moving on. You said that we're in a pandemic. Let's just say we're moving out of it. We have good vaccination rates here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I feel people are adhering, and if we continue to force it too much, then you may have a level of rebellion, because people will not feel as if, how come this is happening here and it's not happening there? And it has to be across the board. And we really just need to now find a way for us to all move on collaboratively and make St. Kitts safe and great, and striving economically again.
All right, thank you for your contribution, Franz. We are so happy that you were able to join this discussion this evening. You took up everyone's time, but luckily we are able to allow the panelists who are here in studio with us to provide their concluding remarks for the remaining minutes that we have, and unfortunately I'll have to limit you to about 30 seconds so that we can wrap up this evening's discussion. So Jamila, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. It is imperative that we work together to overcome the challenges. We understand that change is difficult, but as a community, as MSMEs, the government, we have to work together to mitigate the risk and protect our nationals and tourists alike. There is a sense of hope and glimmer on the lights on the horizon, and as I said earlier, the theme of inclusion, innovation and collaboration is quite fitting for this year's theme, Pillars of Recovery for the Local Tourism Industry. Good night.
Thank you, Jamila. Sajal?
Well, I wasn't told we're going to do a closing statement, so I didn't write anything, but I do have, okay, well, look, the phase restart of our tourism industry is going extremely well. December is going to be a very hectic month for us. It's going to be a very good month. Starting from the 5th to the 31st of December, we only have 3 days with no ships. We have 6 cruise ships in 1 day on Thursday the 14th of December. I'm sorry, the 16th. Next time, give us bigger tablets. We have 4 cruise ships on the 7th, the 9th, and the 30th. We have 3 cruise ships days, multiple 2 cruise ship days. So the phase restart is indeed working, and I understand some people are impatient with it, but we cannot open the doors one time. It would be irresponsible of us. But looking at December, I think, most people will agree better is coming.
Thank you, Sergeant. Sergio Navlet?
The Ministry of Tourism is in the business of inclusion, innovation, collaboration. And I would just like to make a plug for the Sustainable Destination Council, chaired by Assistant Secretary Ms. Diane Taylor-Williams, when the STC will be shortly launching a resident satisfaction survey, where we'll be trying to get feedback from our citizens as to how the industry is being rolled out, whether or not they feel they're a part of it, whether they're consulted, and the direction in which they would like to see our tourism industry to go. So I think getting feedback from our people is important, and we will continue to collaborate with our various stakeholders to make the industry a successful one. Thank you.
Thank you, Navlet. Thank you to all of our panelists who would have joined the discussion this evening. Thank you to all of the persons who are listening. I want to thank the Ministry of Tourism and the St. Kitts Tourism Authority for the successful hosting of a Tourism Awareness Month. I wish you success in all of your future endeavors. And to all of the individuals who are a part of the tourism industry, I want to thank you, especially our taxi drivers, for keeping us safe for that point in time where you were the sole providers of transportation. I think you still are, for persons who are coming into St. Kitts and Nevis to get them to their destination. We thank you for the work that you have done and the work that you will continue to do. I want to wish everyone a wonderful night, and God bless you. Have a great time tonight, and please continue to support the activities of the Tourism Awareness Month. Thank you.
Welcome back to St. Kitts. The health and safety of both our residents and our visitors remains our #1 priority. Please ensure that you put on your face, Stay in your lane. Practice social distancing. Sanitize. Wash or sanitize your hands every 30 minutes. And follow established health and safety protocols on all island tours. Report COVID-19 symptoms to any government official or your hotel manager. You can call the Emergency Health Hotline at 311. We look forward to welcoming familiar faces and to introducing St. Kitts to those who may not have visited before.